Sunday was a bittersweet day for me. After nearly 5 years, 4 seasons, and dozens of hours, my favourite TV show, Succession, has finally come to an end. Now, this may be surprising to those of you who are familiar with my ardent fandom, but I never actually watched the first 2 seasons of Succession when they came out. In fact, I only first started watching the show, like many others, during the pandemic, where I got my very first impression of the Roy family from that awful softball scene where Roman taunts a child with $1 million check. Through season 2, I found myself laughing my head off at Boar on the Floor, visibly cringing at Tom stealing the chicken off of Logan's plate, and having my jaw drop at Kendall's press conference where he finally and very publicly turns against his father. And as we've pointed out before, the shadow of the Murdochs hung over this entire television drama. And at points, it really felt like the show was mirroring our reality.
This is the most humble day of my life.
When I read of the abuses of power alleged in my cruise division, well, that was the worst day of my life.
So none of your UK staff draw your attention to this serious wrongdoing, even though the case received widespread media attention?
I think my son can perhaps answer that in more detail. He was a lot closer to it.
Mr. Logan Roy, what did you personally know about the operation of a system of obfuscation of wrongdoing in your cruise division by means of the keeping of shadow logs?
At that point, I believe my son was across that operation.
Look, binging Succession was one thing, but watching the last 2 seasons as they aired was a completely different experience. By then, it felt like the whole world was watching. Everyone in my industry in particular was talking about each weekly episode of Succession and couldn't get enough of it. And look, we've talked plenty Succession on this show before, but today I'm going to warn you, there are spoilers ahead. For those of us who watched the finale on Sunday, more than 3 million of us so far, there was a rare, warm moment where Kendall, Shiv and Roman finally came together after deciding to back Kendall as the successor for their late father's company, Waystar Royco.
Meal fit for a king. Meal fit for a king.
Kings don't wear silly hats. Kings wear crowns.
I can't drink anymore.
Well, then don't. Wear your crown, sir.
Oh, no.
No. Wear your crown.
No.
Then let me put it on.
Oh, my God. Mom! King!
I can't lie, it was a really sweet moment. Perhaps too sweet, because a lot of fans online called for the show to end right there. That's how it should have ended, they say. But if we've learned anything over the last 4 seasons, playful and loving Roy siblings are a pipe dream. It's simply not who they really are. And the ending of Succession made that exact point.
What the f***? Let go.
Did you say?
Stop.
Did you say?
You have no kids.
Don't do this. Shiv, don't do this.
Off me. You piece of shit.
Get off me.
Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me?
Shiv, no, wait. Shiv, wait.
The Roys, to put it bluntly, are the worst of the worst. And showrunner Jesse Armstrong certainly doesn't let us forget that fact, that they are truly awful people. And so if you find yourself identifying too closely with any of the characters on Succession, well, I'm sorry, but maybe you're not a good person either. So, while I proudly can say I don't identify with any of those siblings or their late dad, and as much as I hated what they stood for and did, I also did grow to love them. I love them, to quote Logan Roy, despite them not being serious people. And I will miss them. In fact, even the other characters on the show had a love-hate relationship with the Roy siblings. There was Stewie Hosseini, played by Arian Moayed, the private equity deal wizard who was a longtime friend of Kendall, then enemy of Kendall, before landing on his side again in that final episode.
Team Ken, baby. I'm a no.
Then there is Waystar Royco General Counsel Jerry Kelman, played by J. Smith Cameron, a long-serving lieutenant whose flirtation with Roman became a fan-favourite side plot. From early on, the internet fell in love with Jerry's composure among the family's tumultuous struggle for power, and as everything began to crumble, Jerry remained cool and calculated, even as her flirtation with Roman unfortunately ended as abruptly as it started. And as things got even more complicated by the finale, Jerry's arrival at the office was enough to send Roman into a panic. I'm thrilled now to have J. Smith Cameron and Arian Moayed with me. Thank you both for joining me. Jay told the New York Times recently, in my 60s, to have this attention, it's just weird. And Arian, in addition to his Succession role, is currently on Broadway alongside Jessica Chastain in A Doll's House, has a Tony nomination for that role. The New York Times recently said of him, Arian Moayed plays creepy men for thoughtful reasons. Thank you both. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here. I've got to ask obvious first question to you both. We saw photos of both of you at a watch party with fellow cast members. What did you guys think of the finale? Did you see the final cut for the first time on Sunday like the rest of us? Jay?
I did. And I need to watch it again because it was a very emotional, sweet reconciliation between all of these people. We hadn't seen each other in a little while. So it was kind of half party and half viewing. So I need to watch it again.
I think we all want to watch it again. Arian, what did you make of the finale, watching it there with all your friends and fellow cast members?
It was just amazing. I mean, just the whole show is based on these amazing people that we get the chance to work with. Jay included mostly. And just to be in that room with all those amazing actors after doing years of doing the show is just very beautiful and sad at the same time. So, it was a nice night. And it was also fun because we probably never see like cheering or, there was like cheering when Jay came. It was cheering when they all came. So it was really kind of a fun night.
It was certainly sad for those of us watching it for the last time. Yeah. Jay, we see you only briefly in the finale, but the new CEO, Tom, says he wants to fire the other C-suite executives, Frank and Carl, but keep Jerry when he takes over. Jerry gets it. She's not afraid of the dark, he says. You've said before, including on this show, that the writers initially wrote your character to be a forgettable fringe male executive. How did you turn that character into this memeable icon and fan favorite that it's become?
Actually, I have no idea. I think she's someone that the audience can identify with because she's watching it all like a circus and kind of wincing and rolling her eyes, and it gets to express some of what I would think is the audience's, shock or disapproval towards the other characters. Like her jaw's always dropped. Yes, how awful Roman is and everything.
The George Robbins is brilliant. And of course, Roman tried to get rid of you in this season, but you stayed on as Jerry's hard to get rid of. Arian, fans of Succession have a love-hate relationship with Stewie, and I was waiting in the finale. Where's Stewie? What's he going to say and do? Here he is in the Waystar board meeting in the finale. He's one of Kendall's closest friends, if you could call him that. And there you are filming. There's a selfie you took. He has no problem stabbing Kendall in the back from times, and he even says this in the finale. Let's have a listen.
I am a selfish person, so.
Yeah.
Do we invite the stew pot in? Get him inside? Non-exec chair. Activists.
Chair, guys. I like weird sex. I like bad drugs. I'm a very complicated individual.
So there's Stew Pot, the complicated individual. And then you, Arian, are also starring on Broadway as the controlling husband opposite Jessica Chastain in A Doll's House. The New York Times recently described you, as I mentioned, as playing creepy men for thoughtful reasons. What is it like for you to play these awful characters, especially when everyone who knows you says you're such a nice, sweet guy?
Well, I pay a lot of people off. I have a huge amount of people that I pay off just for the nice guy part. The truth is I don't think of them as awful. You can't think of them as awful because the moment you do, you all of a sudden are making them into like some sort of SNL sketch. You really want to keep them as authentic and as true as possible. Stewie is amazing because he will always tell you the truth. He will always say, I'm here for the money and the money only. And still also be Kendall's friend and kind of wishes sometimes that Kendall would kind of take the money first before everything else. And so Stewie's very clear on what his intentions are. And with that's the nugget that you can hang on to, that he's always going to at least tell you the truth of it all.
Well, there's that great moment where he shakes Tom's hand at the end, looking forward to working with him. It's just moved on.
Yeah, exactly. Just after he voted against him. He's like, hey.
Just money. It's about the money. Hey, it's the money.
Yeah.
Jay, the writers are not subtle about having the Roy family mirror the Murdochs. But, of course, Logan Roy gets killed off dramatically towards the beginning of this final season. His children are all lost at the end of it. And yet, in real life, Rupert Murdoch is still going strong at the helm of his empire. His son Lachlan is CEO, ready to inherit it all. And neither of them were affected by the recent Dominion lawsuit. What does a show like Succession tell us about the power, the influence, the untouchability of people like the Murdochs and the Roys?
Well, I mean, what comes to mind is I was struck with that lawsuit, how they settled at the last moment for a great deal of money rather than admitting fault publicly, right? Which is right out of our show. And I tweeted, someone asked me, what would Jerry think of this? Or what do you think of this? And I said, Rupert Murdoch obviously has a Jerry working for him who has finally convinced him to settle. And, you know, the horrible, slimy joke of it all is they probably won't feel the loss of all that money.
No.
You know,
it's funny you should say that does Rupert Murdoch have a Jerry, because Viet Din, who is the chief legal counsel at Fox, who led this case, according to New York Times this past weekend, is godfather to Lachlan Murdoch, which, of course, Jerry is godmother to Shiv, as we heard during that famous firing. So the parallels continue. Arian, what kind of show do you think Succession was about? Was it about the Murdochs? Is it about wealth? Or is it just about a messed up family? What was the underlying commentary aimed at, driven by, do you think?
I think because there's so many truths that are being told on that show, I think you can kind of take any one of those three options. For me, to me, at the end of the day, with obviously spoilers, but at the end of the day, these children falling the way that they have fallen, seeing that they're at the bottom again somehow, and having someone like Roman say, we're nothing, we're all BS. I mean, to me, I think Jesse is really trying to tell you that this type of capitalism and wealth is just, it's just not right. There's no reason for this kind of power. And even in the 8th episode, with regards to the election, none of us watched that episode and were like, wow, that is so fiction. We all were like, that's kind of how this could possibly or might have gone. And so I think the commentary is that should so little people have so much power in this world? And I think the answer is no.
I think the answer is no. We had a political scientist on after the election night show on this show to talk about how real that Wisconsin scenario could be.
Oh, gosh.
You're both very political people in real life, which I like and admire about you both. Jay, you and I have talked before about your activism on voting rights, you urging the Dems to take state elections seriously where abortion rights are being decided. Arian, you're an Iranian American. You spoke out during the women's protests against the regime earlier this year. Unlike your characters on the show, you have both always cared about, I'm wondering, have you always both cared about politics and justice and activism? Jay?
Well, in my case, I think I really only became at all political minded during the 2016 election cycle. And I remember being in London when Brexit happened. And that's suddenly when I got interested in Twitter, too, because I was just fascinated by all the discourse about it. And I felt like there was no longer any room for anyone not to be political, like push had come to shove. So I wasn't particularly political before that.
And Arian, Stewie Husseini wouldn't be caught dead at a women's rights rally, would he? But you were speaking there earlier this year. I think we've got some footage of you speaking there as well. What drives you?
I believe that for me, I think one of the reasons why I am an artist is because I believe that our work is to be great citizens and try to move the needle of progress. I think the only two things that remain on earth are wars and art, and I'm glad to be a part of the art portion of it. I feel that we have a duty to leave this world a little bit better through empathy and engagement and excellence. And I've founded a nonprofit here in New York City called Waterwell that kind of believes in that. So to me, I feel all these things are actually intertwined. I actually don't even think of them that political, to be honest with you. I think of them as one and the same. Even shows like Succession and A Doll's House, I feel like we are trying to put together where art and citizenship collide.
Well said. Jay, I'm going to give you the last word. One of your final scenes in the show is at the St. Regis Hotel after Logan Roy's funeral. You sort of reprimand your fellow C-suite colleagues after they joke about Roman's breakdown during the eulogy. Let's have a watch.
you get this?
No.
Did you get it? I'll send it to you.
Who recorded?
I think it was Ray. Listen to this. He sounds like a sow that's about to get the stun gun and knows it.
Roman?
Don't
Listen. No, this is circulating.
Don't play that.
Come on.
Oh, a show.
Jerry is still looking out for Roman, even after he fired her twice. And he's clearly still thinking about her. One of the last scenes of the show is him ordering himself her favorite drink, a dirty martini, which you tweeted about, quote, "My ex wants me back." Do you think the Roman and Jerry story is over at that point? We can only imagine, I guess.
I don't think so. I feel like, well, I don't know what's in Jesse and the other writers' minds, but I feel like the fact that even just so little bit of the narrative of their relationship is referenced in the very end, but the fact that we're looking at each other and it's hard for us is proof that there's some kind of attachment there. I mean, I've always thought that, you know, that what Jerry wanted was a business relationship with him, but in the course of events, I think, you know, he got under her skin. She got really attached to him, and she's not used to being attached to it, and to people, and she probably didn't even recognize what she was feeling. So I think she's, you know, not a sentimental person, but finding herself still feeling worried for him and empathy for him. I mean, Succession's kind of this cold, chilly, objective world where there really isn't empathy. It's like it doesn't really exist in the little pretend universe of it. But I feel like whatever version of it that there could be, that she's feeling that for him.
What a pretend universe it was. J. Smith Cameron, a.k.a. Jerry, Ariane Moayed, a.k.a. Stewie, thank you both for helping make something that many of us remember for decades to come. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much.